Hello everyone, welcome back to another mini collection showcase. My name is Matthew. It's been a little bit since we last done the most previous episode of which I don't even remember what the actual last episode. Actually, no, that's a lie. It was the Battle Wars from the Playmates variety. Yep. But today's episode is going to be primarily focused on NECA. Who doesn't love NECA? Anyway, that was the last figure that I got was the 2003 Tokyo SOS Hyper Maser Blast Goji. This one is going to be talking about the Atomic Blast variant. So at least this gives me an excuse to talk about more of my personal favorite action figure line of all time. So with that said, let's go ahead and go through the ones we're taking a look at today, which are the Atomic Blast repaints of previous Godzilla molds. We have in order of how old the incarnation is in specific, not necessarily in release, the 56 poster version from Raymond Burr's Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is a repaint of the 1954 figure, the 2001 Atomic Blast version, which is a repaint of the 2001 figure. Yeah, who would have thought? The NECA Godzilla 2016 Atomic Blast variant, which is a repaint of the 2016 original, and of course, the NECA Godzilla 2019 V2, or the poster version as it's dubbed, which, no surprise there, is a repaint of the 2019 V1. Even though it shares a completely different base color scheme, whatever. Anyway, so the whole themage of this video is to pretty much go over what actually are the Spitfire Godzillas from NECA's offerings from 2014 to 2020. Now, for those confused why the NECA 62, 64, 89 are not here, even though they do come with beam effects, what I define as Spitfire is yes, they are spitting fire, but they're not atomic charge up variants. They are the original base 20, whatever they released variants of their counterparts. Even the 62 and 64, they don't have repaints. So with that said, and also by the way, the 89 does have a repaint, but it's not necessarily a Spitfire variant. It is a Biolante Bio variant. So we're going to be talking about that as well later. But for actually just giving their beam effects a shout, since they do deserve some sort of praise here, this is the breath effect that came with the 1962 Godzilla, and also would later be really packaged with the poster box reissue of the 1954 Godzilla. And it would basically look like this. It was its own unique kind of like steam, because back then in the 60s and especially the 50s, it looked more like mist and less like a concentrated beam of energy. So this actually does warrant like the actual detail, because like you can kind of see like where the bottom is and then kind of like swirls up like steam. So yeah, this is like really when NECA kind of like cracked out and really gave us a really nice looking beam effect. The only like real criticism I have with this thing is I feel like the beam effect is a bit too heavy for its own good, because even when you're just displaying it for a few hours, the beam itself will droop. And you can kind of see, although it looks a little straightened, you can kind of see there's a little bit of a curve. Yeah, that's not meant for the tongue. That's like literally because of how long it's been in the mouth sagging down over the years. So basically what I do is like I take it this way and let the weight kind of adjust itself and then plug it at the right moment to get it to fix. Doesn't always work, but it is a solution I've kind of developed. Also, another criticism I do have is that it is white, not blue. Because even in the 1962 film, which this is the 1962 Godzilla beam, I currently have no desire to pick up the 54 box reissue because I already own the original. This is not the right color. Even in that movie, it was a very mild shade of blue. So I feel like NECA could have done better with this, but at that point, that's just nitpicking. This is a very cool beam nonetheless. And you'd have some teeth grooves, which also do kind of align with not the 62, but the 54 teeth, which kind of leads me to believe that this was meant to be packaged with the 54 all along, but they just used it with the 62. So again, it is just my theory. Next beam effect. This is the 1964 Godzilla from Mothra vs. Godzilla. And as you can see here, the actual like Let me just readjust here. The actual beam effect here does look very similar to that of the 1962 Godzilla beam, if not a little bit more yellowed-ish, a little bit. Part of that could be because of age, because this thing is a few years old, and I am aware that some translucent plastics, especially white plastic, does tend to yellow a bit over time, so that could be the reason. I don't know, I'd have to go back to my original video. Anyway, so yes, it's a lot more narrow of a beam, and I vaguely remember I did contact NECA when this figure was initially revealed, and I even messaged them, is there going to be a beam effect with this thing? They said no. And when the figure was shown off, they showed that there was a beam effect with this guy. Fun fact, this is actually a modified, retooled beam of the NECA G.M.K beam, which came up before the 64 did. My theory is that when I contacted them, there was not a beam planned, but sometime in between me contacting them and them actually releasing the promo pics, they included a beam, and it was a beam sculpt that they already had. So in order to just differentiate from 62, they just brought back this one and modified the mouth tab. Anyways, so yeah, same idea, still the white, but it's a lot more narrow, and in my personal opinion, I do personally prefer the look of the 62 beam, but it is fine the way it is. And lastly, for the base Godzillas that do come with beam effects is the 89, which thank you for giving us the blue, and it's also a lot less heavy, so it's not going to droop over time, which thank you. It almost looks like a modified 2019 V2 beam, but the two beams share absolutely nothing in common as far as the sculpt is concerned. So we have the white base, which still kind of looks like a Q-tip, and then we have the blue, kind of like light blue, sprayed onto it with dark blue, like here and there. And of course, the spiral itself. This could be a really nice base for a custom red spiral ray, which is something I really wish NECA could have included with their Burning Godzilla reissues, but c'est la vie at this point. But of course, we have the throat part of it that goes in the throat hole, and of course, we have the this little groove, which is the teeth. The bottom teeth, to be more precise. There's a promo pic that has it up this way, but that is not the right way because the shape of the beam right here. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the beam effects for the base Godzillas. Anyways, let's get on with it. Here we have the 1956 Godzilla. So, of course, being a repaint of the 1954 Godzilla, to briefly go over it, it is one of their more original figure releases, the older ones specifically, because NECA never released these in waves. They announced them kind of like one at a time, and if they did overlap, chances are is because it was just by freak coincidence. This was actually, if I remember correctly, revealed like in 2018 or something. Didn't get released until 2019. I could be wrong about that, but my memory is a bit hazy from that time anyway. But as for the actual figure, it is a repaint just blatantly. For the head, has a bunch of greens on it, and of course the black backing. The teeth has some teeth painted, others are not. Claws here, got like a neon green, which actually does glow under a black light when it had a black light. Dorsal plates are painted like a ruby orange, so that looks really nice. And all the way down here as well, we got all of the dorsal plates painted back there, which looks really nice. And of course, talking about the beam effect itself, this would be the technical and chronological release order of the figures, the second beam, because this figure, this 62 beam eventually became this guy's beam, which looks very flame-like with the translucent yellow. And of course the orange highlights at the tip. Well, I guess more towards the, where it's like fanning out, almost like a fireball. Remember this? See, like this looks great as a fireball. So why am I featuring this one if it's obviously not a Spitfire or glowing dorsal plates firing the beam? Well, to that I say, it actually is. If you take a look at the 1956 movie poster, which is what this figure is based on, you'll actually see, like, at the back of the dorsal plates, there is a clear indication of white glowing effect. Because in the film, he does glow white. And then again, the whole movie's in black and white, right? But that is a clear indication that this figure is supposed to be, or well, the actual design at hand was a Spitfire variant. Plus, doesn't he exactly do that in the film? So yes, this does count as a Spitfire version of at least what this video is trying to convey. But aside from that, we do continue the green here on the legs, the feet, very well. Just really kind of hammered down the point. He also came with a little cardstock backdrop. I don't have it anymore. It's been years since it was thrown out. By pure accident, I'm sure, but like, kind of would have liked it. And then again, where would I put it? So there is that. Next is the very first one. And I got for, well, as more of an early Christmas gift of, oh God, when was it? Like 2017? The G.M.K. Godzilla Atomic Blast variant, which was NECA's first ever Atomic Blast variant figure. Now, this guy has been through a little bit over the years, but he's still a very much crowning figure in my personal opinion, because not only is he my only GMK from NECA, because I don't actually own the original, but he's up next after the 84. He is also like just one of my favorites visually. His dorsal plates are just magnificent. I love like the little crystal tips of like the white and then transitioning to the blue. And then for the front there, they actually do like pretty much like an atomic glow effect, almost like the beam is actually illuminating Godzilla's skin. Granted, I do think that they went a bit ham with it, but you can tell that it just looks so grand and everything. Because even like when you're just putting this guy in a neutral pose like this. Also, do forgive all the fur and dust because I do live with cats. It looks so good. I will admit that personally, I kind of wish the whole like tail was illuminating. But that said, I remember in the film like only the back glowed. I don't remember. Also, mine did come with a bit of a QC issue. It seems like for whatever reason, the bendy wire was not placed in fully, and now I got this. Yeah, if you don't know what that was, it was actually glue or nail polish, one of the two. And, well, I'm kind of scared that this thing can break off. But effectively, this whole, like, metal wire, like, I go to bend it, and I can clearly feel that there's nothing in here. Yeah, I know that's where the ball socket is, but I don't know, there's just something wrong with the bendy wire. And that feels really stiff, so I'm not going to play with that any more than I realistically shouldn't be. So clearly bendy wires are not meant to last in these NECA figures, but that's fine because I rarely use them anyway. As for the beam effect, it's actually pretty well solid. It's pretty opaque, well, as in like non-see-through. And we actually have one line of white, and then this side is more like blue. It's very sticky over here because I did put sticky tack because it kept falling out a few years ago. Anyway, so yeah, we have like this little tab just to do a side-by-side comparison with the mothra beam, because they are the same sculpt, but they did modify this to have like a little tab back there. So also, if I remember correctly, because I don't own the reboxed issue, poster version, whatever, they actually do feature that on the reissue. So just kind of like smack them in there. There you go. Oh man, I can't wait to own the original. That's just going to be like eye candy. But of course, money, time, you know. Anyways, that's going to be that. Also, if I remember correctly, the original was more green. That's more of a charcoal gray. Perfect color tone difference. Next up, we've got the Shin Godzilla, which this was bought to me courtesy. Let's actually kind of back up the camera. this was bought to me courtesy of my sister, which thank you very much. This thing is freaking massive. And I do mean that in the literal sense because the figure is actually pretty tall and all things extended pretty wide too, because the beam effect, that's a bit of a problem. The beam effects, like, you can't, oh my god. You know what, fine. You wanna stretch out like that? Fine. Stretch it out. This thing is like almost as long as my Titan Godzilla back there. You see that? Yeah. It's almost as long as that. Primarily because it is Shin Godzilla and like the tail's already like stupid long. But let's go ahead and talk about the actual like beam effects here, which, in my personal opinion, and I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer here, I think the beams kinda suck. Now, here's the thing. I feel like in concept they do work well. A thin, narrow beam, like that's kind of hard to screw up. NECA even did it before, but this just, the beam effect doesn't do it for me. It's not purple enough for me. Like, yes, you get some highlights of pink, but it's mostly confined to a white with translucency and holes on the bottom. Like, why? This thing isn't a bendy wire. I've tried bending it. I heard a click. I'm gonna stop messing with that. Anyway, this, like, it's not only super long, but the connection, it's literally just a metal peg. Come on, let's get that sucker in there. I'm trying to actually like show it on camera as best as I can. And I guess that's gonna be the best I can get it. I just had it too. Well, whatever. It's, oh, there we go. See, that is a metal peg. This brown stuff, I'm pretty sure is also like some sort of glue or nail polish to like thicken it up and help secure the connection. It didn't really help. So essentially, this metal rod is like going all the way through the beam to help provide it some more security. Which again sounds nice in concept, but because of that, the trade-off is that you have this big gaping hole in Shin's mouth, and now you've got this, which no matter how you have it posed, the metal prong is always going to be, it's always going to be visible. What I would have done was scrap the metal prong and scrap this beam effect. Reconstruct it with a little bit more detail, something like this, not saying literally used it, but something like this. Give it a bit more detail and make the peg translucent. And get rid of this big pimple in his mouth and actually have the hole at the back. Not like that big circular thing. That's how I would have done it. The tail beam, though, don't really have a whole lot of complaints about. The actual, like, purple, though, I do personally have a bit of, like, issues with as well. Oh, wait, hold, that's the wrong side. Is that this part is more, like, white than purple, but you do get more of, like, the purple as you go down. Like here, if the whole figure was like this, I feel like I'd have little to no problems with the paint. But unfortunately, that is not the case, and a lot of it is kind of like mixed and matched. There's very little subtlety to it, in my personal opinion. It does not look best, and the beam constantly slides. Whatever. Let's get the Shin Godzilla. Now, hold on. Did I turn off my brightness? Okay, there we go. Okay, so I don't know how much of that I picked up, like at a fundamental value, but because I didn't even realize my camera was low on brightness. Anyway, so really pointing it out, the Shin Godzilla figure definitely was not done the best on NECA's part, because I feel like the beams here could have used a bit of work. I do like the new head sculpt. I like the paint job on the neck, and I do like what they did with the back. I just wish it was a bit more of a deep purple. That's really my only gripe. The beams, however, and its connection suck. At least the mouth beam. The tail beam, fix up the color, I wouldn't have any problem with it. Another thing is that I kind of wish that this figure also had a bit more beam effect, because Shin Godzilla is known for having a lot of different beams. He has the smoke breath, he has the back beams, he has the fire, like pretty much a lot of different variations. And while I am happy with what we did get, I honestly overall feel that NECA could have included, well, maybe not included, but released like a Shin Godzilla Ultimate Atomic Kit or something, and have like all the bells and whistles for a NECA Shin Godzilla. Although the only thing is, like, how would you do the back beams and actually do it correctly, since that would require drilling a ton of different holes into the back side of Shin, so maybe not. And now we're going to be taking a look at the last one, which is our good old personal favorite, the 2019 V2. Why is this one my personal favorite? Simple. Blues for days. When Godzilla, my personal favorite movie character, and blue, my personal favorite color, mix like this, there's no going back. The mouth here is like different blues within itself, like blue at the top and the bottom. The eyes are like a metallic silver with blue highlighted over it, and you just get all like this blue wash seeping into the figure. As you can see, again, I'm doing like a very much a brief overview, just not to repeat lips here, unlike the original reviews. The dorsal plates, my personal favorite, just have a lot of different like aquas and turquoises, turquoise, wink, and of course the metallic here at the bottom just looks so good and just cannot be beat. Unfortunately, we don't have any of that on the bottom of the legs here, but you do get a very nice amount of detail as well, like the sculpted features of it. Also, the more sharpened dorsals, the claws here, and of course the tail. Top aqua blue with like blue highlights, the metallic blue with the sides, and I guess some more basic detail here at the bottom. But for the actual beam effect, this one's interesting, because usually they have a peg here, not this one. The tongue actually pegs into the beam, and you can actually tell that that's the top, and you basically just kind of like slide it in there and lightly close Godzilla's mouth, just so both of the jaws are kind of like compact together. So that looks nice. Here you have the little Q-tip base with a very, very nice beam effect. I'll say the beam effect itself is very much like, I don't know, it looks more on the basic side to me. I would have liked a bit more chaoticness with it. But of course we have the white continuing as well. And of course it also does have a bit of like detail every here and there. But what's a cool addition is that you also get this, which is like an impact base or like some sort of umbrella effect, which you also just slide into it like this. The only like real problem is that the connection for both the beam in the mouth and the beam in the base are very like loose. So unless you have it like this, and or resting up against like a big figure like the Hayek Toys R Us Monsters King Ghidorah, it's not going to look the 100% the greatest. I don't know what prompted NECA to use this, include this, but it's a welcome addition in my opinion. And so that is the NECA Godzilla range of Spitfire variants. Again, I'm looking at only ones that were specifically designed for the repaints of the Spitfire variants, and I think that these actually did turn out very well. If I did have some gripes again, it would be that the original like let me backtrack. The original release 2019 Godzilla and this one, those are two different colors. I like that. Those also two different colors, good. I do find it a bit odd that for things like the Shin Godzilla, they did kind of like hold back on paint, like the tail tips. And what I mean by that is like the tail, like bendy wire portion, even though it really doesn't work on mine, is a different color to the rest of the body. It's not as red as I'd like it to. And the beam effects, quality wise, when they try to do something that's not a standard peg, both in Shin and 2019, just don't really work well. It doesn't, again, it's not as good as it could be. But aside from that, these are really fun repaints and I do enjoy them. This video did end up being a lot longer than I wanted it to, but that's fine. Any excuse to talk about my favorite action figure line. As for what comes next, I do plan on picking up the 85 just because I want to round out my whole collection. I'm 3 figures away because after that we're going 2001, 2016. That's it. So continuing with our NECA journey, do so hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.